My first speaker for this session is Dr. Zafar Nawaz Jaspal. I think introduction has been already made, so I will sort of not go into the details of.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure and honor for me to be here, and I'm thankful to Sanober and FES. As it was already pointed out, that word is very much disordered by the Journal Saab in his keynote speech. Let me start from there. The topic which they assigned to me is deterrence, stability, or instability in South Asia and what we call it Middle East. We have to keep in mind that when we look about the deterrence stability, practically deterrence stability have visited or had been visited after the invent of the nuclear weapons. And we have started coining the stability, instability, or how the nuclear deterrence was working. But in the era of first nuclear age, it was very much there. And then in the era of second nuclear age, again it was stabilized by the nuclear non-proliferation regime, but still there was something mutually assured destruction was that ring. In the third nuclear age, we start seeing that again there was a restraint, but the emerging technologies were testing the stability. And then came the fourth nuclear age, which the Western scholars are not taking it much because they are stuck with their third nuclear age, but we are now in the fourth nuclear age. This fourth nuclear age is entirely different from the previous three nuclear ages. And because of that, when it is a different, we can also find that the deterrence stability, or the way we were looking at deterrence stability, it is also different. So we have to be prepared for that. Let me trace this to the, you can say, landmark events, which led me to refer that we are in the fourth nuclear age. First landmark event was 26th February 2019, Balakot, when a nuclear armed state went for a nuclear, you can say, air raid against a nuclear armed state. And it was further happened, that was 2019, 27th February, when two nuclear armed states had a air combat. And one nuclear armed state lost its aircraft, pilot was captured. But anyway, at that time, we can say war did not update deterrence stability or something like that we talked, but it was you can say in a real theoretical saying, instability started. But then we have seen a real instability in May 2025, when a nuclear armed state conducted surgical strikes against the nuclear armed state, and then we have a 4 days war. Now here, if somebody is saying that there was no use of a nuclear weapon, it's incorrect. Because when we constitute a holistic strategy or a grand strategy, we take into account all the kinds of the weapon of our adversary and in our threat constructs and in our reply. So you can say the nuclear dimension was there, but of course we did not escalate. Did the nuclear weapons brought a stability, or rationality prevails in either way? So that is a new dimension, that the nuclear armed states, under the nuclear, let's say, umbrella, they fight the nuclear war, and that we can say, the conventional war, that is anytime war is a slippery road which can lead to somewhere. And we are now seeing this happening in the Middle East. The second landmark development in this context is absence of the bilateral nuclear arms control and complete, you can say, a steady erosion of, not complete, steady erosion of the nuclear non-proliferation regime. We have no today bilateral nuclear arms control arrangement since February 2026. So it's a new kind of a thinking. Because institutions, regimes provide you a stability, predictability. Arms control brings this predictability, leading to a stability. So if there's no nuclear arms control between the great powers or a nuclear arms state, it indicates instability. The third important point in this context, which is very alarming, a nuclear arms state, which is a conventionally superior technologically, economically, politically. Those states are using a nuclear threats against a non-nuclear weapon states, which are in a power calculation inferior or lesser developed. For instance, Putin, he said this, he used it, and there is an instability because of the Ukraine war. Every time, whenever he felt that there is a possibility of escalation or maybe he has to face some kind of a difficult situation, he start, or his, you can say, AD start talking about nuclear rhetoric. Now comes towards South Asia, a conventionally superior state, so-called 7 times bigger state, is using nuclear threat to pacify. These weapons are not for Diwali, night of massacre. These are deployed, these kind of the things. Then comes toward the Middle East. In the Middle Eastern context, we cannot underestimate there is United States striking on a state which did not declare itself as a nuclear weapon state. Israel, a non-nuclear weapon state, continuously striking on a non-nuclear weapon state. And here, the non-nuclear weapon state, which is Iran, is a member of the NPT. What is your way of testing the states whether it's a nuclear weapon or not? That is International Atomic Energy Agency safeguards. You say that is 60% enriched or 3.5% enriched, or they have a capability. Yes, you can say Iran is a latent nuclear weapon state, but there are more than 64 latent nuclear weapon states in the world. So why nuclear armed states are striking, and what is the outcome? Where the deterrence nuclear capabilities fail to deter the smaller powers to retaliate. For instance, Ukrainians went for a protracted asymmetrical warfare. Iranians went for protracted horizontal asymmetrical warfare. And Pakistan, of course, is a viable battle-hardened armed forces. Instead of asymmetrical warfare, we went for a straight striking and knocked out. So, if I can just put this 1 year's development, so we are in a new era where theoretically maybe it seems that there is a nuclear deterrent stability, but instability, qualifying stability, instability paradox, but at the same time, in reality, there is an instability. With the nuclear, what the first writing in 1946, which became very popular by Brody, he said, we make a nuclear strategy to fight a war. Actually, we are making a nuclear strategy to avoid a war. This era is over. Today, we make a nuclear strategy to fight a war. Why I'm saying it? India is working in this region for counterforce. And naturally, I'm going to work for an anti-counterforce. Pakistan's talk about full spectrum deterrence. It was in 2019. Deterrence is a living organism. Every day it needs a change. It needs you can say, nutrition to be stabilized, to grow. So today, if I can stick with the full spectrum deterrence term, maybe theoretically, practically, it workable? No. Within that, you have to go for tailored, flexible deterrence. Why? Because you have to now focus on the aerial defenses. You have to focus on the new hypersonic technologies. There is a new era of technologies, new era of thinking, new era of strategists. So that is the reason when everything is changing, it means whether you call it disorder, whether you call it transition, whether you call it instability. From one spectrum to the other spectrum, we are moving, whatever a good term you can coin for it. But there is a transformation, there is a change. And in a strategic thought, starting from Sun Tzu to date or Thucydides to date, whenever there is a new technology, whenever there is a new thinking, there is a change in the warfare. You can't stick with it. Thank you very much.